let's think. Oh, announcement-wise, I recently updated the mitosis lecture online, the lecture notes. I don't know if any of you are printing them out that far in advance. We're not going to get to mitosis for 3 or 4 weeks, but if you did print out the mitosis lecture ahead of time, you might have to print it out again because I made a few changes in it. Just by show of hands, did anybody print that lecture out already? Oh, good. Well, you did? Oh, sorry about that. Just the last few pages are what changed is all. Yeah, I hate to penalize people who are diligent and working ahead of time like that, but every now and then I will update a lecture. Let's see. The quiz in here at, I don't know, 11:45 or so will be the on energy, but nothing on photosynthesis on this quiz. Yes, that's it. All right, well, let's jump back into photosynthesis. Come on in. I started off on photosynthesis last time just giving kind of a broad introduction to the topic before we get into any molecular nitty-gritty of it. And the basic idea was this, that plants want to make glucose for themselves as mostly for an energy source for their cells. And so they're able to get carbon dioxide that just is freely available, just floating around in the air, and they're able to get water molecules from out of the ground, also pretty freely available. And then they turn the carbon dioxide and water molecules into glucose, and some oxygen also, but mainly the plants are after the glucose. But that's a non-spontaneous reaction, meaning it's an increase in potential energy, so you have to always put energy into a non-spontaneous reaction to make it to occur. And what the plants use, or the sunlight, is the energy source to drive this non-spontaneous reaction. And if you look at the overall chemical equation for the photosynthesis process, here it is. The plants need to take in 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water, and then rearranging those atoms, they're able to make 1 molecule of glucose and also 6 molecules of oxygen, which for the most part they just release into the air. And if you add up all the carbons and oxygens and hydrogens on this side of the equation, they equal the carbons, oxygens, and hydrogens on this side of the equation, which is what you'd expect from a balanced chemical reaction. Now, I think last time I didn't emphasize a little fact about this. It's not a one-step, one-enzyme process at all. It's complex. There are dozens of enzymes and non-enzymes involved in the process. There's quite a bit going on, but this is the overall equation for the entire photosynthesis process. And any organism that can make its own organic nutrient molecules like glucose from carbon dioxide and water is called an autotroph, which means self-feeder. And I guess the name makes sense because it's making its own food. And photosynthesis is a method of being an autotroph. It's a method of making the glucose using sunlight. As we'll discuss a little bit later on in the semester, there are autotrophs who don't use sunlight. There are autotrophs who use, for instance, things like minerals in the soil as an energy source to drive this reaction. So anytime you make your own glucose, you're an autotroph, but photosynthesis is just one way of being an autotroph when you use the sunlight to drive the reaction. All right, there's glucose, and glucose the plants use for the cellular fuel, you know that. And I guess I mentioned that it's not just plant cells, our cells, bacteria cells, fungi cells, pretty much any cell on the face of the earth likes to use glucose as its favorite energy fuel, which is why so many organisms like cows and ourselves, birds and things, eat plants. Plants are the base of the food chain in that they create nutrients, and then we feed on the plants to get our nutrients from. Or we feed on the animals that feed on the plants to get our nutrients, but it all comes back to the plants creating the nutrients. So we are not autotrophs, we are heterotrophs. We are not able to make organic molecules like glucose from carbon dioxide and water, so we've got to get those by eating other organisms, either plants or the animals that eat the plants. And so just a reminder here, the 3 domains of life, that have eukaryotic cells, and bacteria domain and archaea domain, which have the prokaryotic cells. And in terms of who are autotrophs and who are heterotrophs, all plants are autotrophs. See, plants are one of the kingdoms in the eukaryote domain. Some of the protistans are also autotrophs. The protistans are these guys. They're also a eukaryotic kingdom. So if you look at like pond water, you'll see little single-celled organisms that are doing photosynthesis. Those are protistans. Some of the bacteria are autotrophs, but some are not. I should have said for the protista kingdom, some are heterotrophs as well. It's kind of a mixed kingdom. Fungi are heterotrophs. All members of the animal kingdom, like ourselves, are heterotrophs, and all of the archaea are heterotrophs. Alrighty then, let us, before I leave this introduction to photosynthesis, so far I've been emphasizing the plants making the glucose as a cellular fuel. That's certainly one of the major things that they use the glucose for. But remember, they also can build the cellulose material out of it, which is where they link the glucose together, but every other one upside down. And this makes this tough fibrous material, cellulose, that the plants use as a building material. The cell wall is made out of cellulose. Pardon me. And pretty much the majority of the plant body is made out of cellulose. Woody plants, the material wood is mostly cellulose with another molecule added to make it a little bit more rigid. But even non-woody plants, most of their bodies are made out of cellulose also. And we benefit from their cellulose also, even though we can't eat it. We use the wood for building materials, and the softer plant cellulose fibers we use to make cotton and paper and things of that. Or I should say we use the cotton, which is mostly cellulose, to make clothing. Alrighty, well, let's see now. One final thing about photosynthesis. Maybe I was leaving off the most important part, the oxygen. The process makes molecular oxygen, which is a gas, and the plants do use some of that for their own needs. Plants do need oxygen, but they make more oxygen than they need, so most of it is released into the air, which is good for us because obviously that's what we need to survive. We need to breathe in oxygen from out of the air. Okay, so now let's begin to look at the actual gory details of the photosynthesis process. And to start off with, leaves are the photosynthetic organs. The leaves are flat structures so that they have a large surface area, so they can catch most of the, they're more efficient at catching the sunlight because they are flat structures. But you can get a little bit more specific than just saying the leaves are where the photosynthesis takes place. If you were to look at a leaf in cross-section, like this showing here, there's the top of the leaf right here, and there's the bottom surface of the leaf right there. In the middle of the leaf are some cells that specialize in doing photosynthesis, and those are called the mesophyll cells. Meso means middle, and phyll means leaf, so literally they are the middle of the leaf cells. And so those are actually the cells that are where the photosynthesis is carried out. The cells at the top of the leaf and the bottom of the leaf really don't do any significant photosynthesis, and the plant cells in the trunk of the plant or the stem of the plant really don't do a lot of photosynthesis, and the roots don't really do a lot of photosynthesis. I mean, they're underground, so I guess they couldn't really do any photosynthesis at all. It's really these mesophyll cells in the leaves that are doing the photosynthesis. Now, I didn't really write it here, but maybe I should mention where they get their water and their carbon dioxide from, these mesophyll cells, because those are the ingredients that they need for photosynthesis. Well, the water comes from the veins in the leaf. If you've ever looked at a leaf, you see it has this network of veins going throughout it. Let's see if we can see any in this last picture. Well, maybe with a little imagination you can see a few veins right there, or maybe right there. But anyway, if you look at a leaf here's one right here. You can see it has these veins going throughout it. Those are vessels to carry water to the mesophyll cells. The water gets pulled in by the roots, travels upward through the stem or the trunk of the tree, and eventually gets delivered in these veins to the mesophyll cells. That's their water supply. As far as carbon dioxide is concerned, that's one of the gas molecules that we find in air. So leaves have little openings at the bottom, like you see there. And one of the purposes of those openings is to let carbon dioxide enter the middle of the leaf so that the mesophyll cells can have a carbon dioxide source. Now, notice that the little hole is called a stoma, which just literally means opening. And notice there's a couple of little lip-shaped cells to the left and right of it, there and there. And you can see them at a slightly better angle there and there. Those are called guard cells. And essentially they can open and close the stoma, the little hole. Just like your lips on your mouth could open and close to shut your mouth hole. That's what the guard cells there do. Here's an extreme close-up of a stoma at the bottom of a leaf. And there you see a guard cell there and a guard cell there. And so carbon dioxide goes in. And remember that one of the products of the photosynthesis process is oxygen gas. And so you also have the stoma letting out the oxygen gas that the mesophyll cells are going to produce. Now, a preview of a topic that's going to come up a little bit later on in this lecture. The inside of the leaf, which is what we're looking at through this stoma hole, is a very moist environment so that the mesophyll cells have a lot of water. But that leads to a problem because if it's a hot day, the water inside is going to start evaporating, so you're not just going to get oxygen leaving through the stoma, you're going to get water evaporating out of there, and that could seriously dehydrate the plant. And so on hot days, the plants have to close their stoma, just like your lips shut in your mouth. The stoma is shut, but that stops the plant from drying out, but it also cuts down on the amount of carbon dioxide the plant is able to utilize. So on hot days, photosynthesis doesn't work very well, not from lack of sunlight, but from lack of carbon dioxide getting into the leaf. All right, well, getting back to this, so the photosynthesis